Good afternoon, all. I think we're going to start just now because we've got a few people who've joined us. And let us start by sharing my screen. And also, I'm going to be asking a few questions from you as usual. And since you all know now, it's a very interactive class. Right, so I want to begin with asking you, how did the class go with Kuma? What did you learn? What's new? What did you learn? Roland, were you in Kuma's class?
Yes, hi Anju. Yes, I
Hi.
have attended the class.
Right,
It
okay.
was quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He defined something that I found useful was the approach to actually answering the question,
Right.
as initially, kind of like saying thank you, for whoever came up with the recommendation and something like that, start with a nice way. And then put some stuff like in the middle, and then argue in different ways for every question,
Mm-hmm.
and then end up also again with discussion should be done, for example, or more studies should be done on this and this and that. So kind of leave the options open and state that, they could be assessed in different ways, meaning not necessarily you have to answer the question in every single way, but state in which ways it could have been answered also differently. So I found this to be useful.
Correct. Yes. It gives you that, again, you're playing the role of a senior strategic manager, isn't it? So there is no definitive answer. There are many ways of answering that particular question is posed to you, and then you're proposing. The idea is you need to provide proposals, right, and to give options, isn't it? And even in real life you do that, and you say, well, with the given information that you've got, these are some of the options, right? So which is good. That's great. What about you, Jay? Anything else that you picked up?
Well, I liked his viewpoints. He brought in additional points which we would never think of, like why is the government so lenient towards us, or uh, whether we can actually develop this, or in terms of software amortization, about the out-of-date software. That was a good point. So he brought in a variety of new points and a way to answer them, how to answer a good question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyone else? How about you, Prabin? Did you get some insight, something new? Maha, what about from you? Anything from you, Maha? Right, so I think what we will do is, right, Swati has just joined. Let me see whether Swati has some insight into the class of Kumas. Swati was just talking with the guys and to see, what additional information they got from Kuma's class. Anything from you? I think Swati is just sorting her mic out. So let's go to today's class. So today's class, I'm gonna focus on some of the issues, right, that we are facing in this particular company, the industry, and so on. And let us see, and why we see these obvious issues. I'm going to pose some questions to you and to get you start thinking, right? Because each of those issues, there will be some of the ways that we can mitigate, right? And we also, as you know, have got risks stated. It's already given. So what does this mean? We have to come up with some of the ways of mitigating these risks, but more of in a strategic sense than in an operational manner, right? So let me start by sharing the screen with you. Okay, so I guess you could see my screen now, and let us I'm going to put this on full screen. Just give me a second. Right, so let us go into one of the first things that we see, right? IAS 638 actually, right? IAS 38. Now, this is related to research and development, and the reason why I picked this up, and Kumar and I have had a chat about this as well, and with some of our other lecturers as well, to see why is it this would be of interest. Now, research and development is a significant area in your case study, and they have spent a lot of time talking about it. They've got like full 2 pages at least. They're talking about this research and development. So you can see that the examiner will be quite interested in this area, right? And he or she would be posing some questions on this. And I just want to find out from you guys. I know that we touched upon this last time, but I after Kumar's class as well. Now I think he got you guys to think on different levels. What about research and development? It's not only the IAS related to it, but what more should you be thinking about? Any ideas? I start with Jay. What about you, Jay? What do you think? Just give me one other thing, and so that I can ask the others as well. The others will have the opportunity to talk.
Yeah, well, I think that they should keep their research in-house so that they can utilize it and patent it and use it for all projects exclusively, so that it's not spread to rival organizations, because our hard work is used by other organizations.
Right, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, anyone else or me?
No. What about Roland? Anything from you?
No, sorry, nothing comes to mind regarding that, Anju. Sorry.
Right. Now remember, these guys are investing heavily in R&D. Okay, they're investing heavily, so we need to think about it. Swati, anything from you? Mohammed?
Hey,
Yeah, go ahead, Swati. Sorry. Go on.
yeah, there's something that I noticed that they do in research and development. So it's like all the employees as well as the directors, the co-founders, they give up a lot of attention to research and development, and sometimes it can be disruptive. What I've noticed is that it can get disruptive because it's also given as a point that going into different fields and then suddenly looking into too much data, they can focus away from their core operations. So this could be an issue that AEN might face due to research, and also their employees, they're doing PhD, and they might not be able to give that much time and attention to their work. That is one of the issues that I saw in research.
Right. Yeah, good point, because what we're saying is we are in the growth phase of the company as well, right? And the industry. It has been growing steadily. So what you're saying is, by you focusing too much on research and development, you might kind of leave and not focus on the current operations, and that may hamper the business as a whole, because this company is not just about research and development, but also it's about the current operations and how to add value to shareholders, right? That's the main thing. So but research is also on one hand a very, very important aspect for us, and that's kind of a dilemma, how we're going to deal with it. Anyone else? Maha, what about you? Thanks, Swati. Anyone else who wants to add?
Yeah, can I?
Yes.
Yeah, here just I want to add one thing on Swati's answer.
Mm-hmm.
That here research is done only by the directors, not by all the employees.
Mm-hmm.
Other thing is that if we can emphasize that our valuable time of the directors are invested in the research instead of business development and all, why not we are sponsoring some university along with the students so that they can come out with the research and that can be utilized by our company and that can be patented as well.
Okay. I think we are anyway investing quite a bit, as you can see, with the universities. We are investing, we are giving them, we're sponsoring research, right? But Swati, any comments from you to that what was said? Any ideas?
Yeah, I'd like to say that definitely research is a big point and it is very important for our company because we've just started our business a few years back and we need to be very competitive because there are a lot of new entrants and things like that. So we need to be competitive and research is definitely very important. We can go into universities, which I think we already are.
Yes.
And as for the employees, what I meant to say was the employees are doing their PhD and, more further studies, whether it is related to their work or not, that could, what I saw was that could hamper the, functions of the company. That's
Right.
why
Okay.
I thought it was a problem. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Can I add
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, actually, achieving also the balance between investing in R&D and achieving a certain profit level would be also another point because maybe the shareholders ask us to cut R&D cost to achieve more profit and more dividends. That's why the company should focus on making that balance.
Right. How would you go about making that balance? How would you go about it?
Yeah, if we can make a good communication and share a business plan that this is not a short-term return, it will give us a long-term return because mainly the R&D has a long-term return and we have to prepare a proper communication with our stakeholders and shareholders that it will increase the the stock price, not only a short-term dividend or return.
Right, and also when it comes to research and development, what about what sort of KPIs would you be looking at? Some KPIs, or would you just make a statement and an amount is given? How do you measure research and development? Have you guys thought about that?
Yeah, it should give a practical solutions, not only just a theoretical suggestion or theoretical theories. Once it can achieve a practical solution or practical outcome, it would be, I think, worth. Yeah.
Right. Anyone else?
I think one good KPI that we could use for research could be, the number of product enhancements that we do based on our research, or the number of new products that we come out with, and also what is the percentage of expenditure of research that actually comes back as profits to us. So we want to see how much returns we're getting as a result of our research, and if it's not doing so well, then probably we should focus our research on something that will actually help us.
Right. So how would you guide? I mean, you have a team of people, or you're working with, you're sponsoring as well. Is there any influence that you can infer upon this research as a company and in the manner they carry it out? So you're just doling out $200,000 or $150,000, another $250,000, significant amount of money, and it will increase. How would you kind of influence this type of research? How to get things done, and you're looking at a KPI. Is there a way that you would be able to do that?
Can we sign a contract that the copyright for the outcomes would be for our company, for example?
Okay, I'm just exploring ideas to see what you guys are thinking, because we come to a question on this as well later on to see, how we do things. Well, let us go to the next slide. Now, I want to talk a little bit about IAS 38 because this is the accounting side of it. How are we going to look at things, right? How would it impact us from a cash flow perspective, right? And a balance sheet perspective, and then the valuation of the company per se, right? Now, what is an intangible asset? Okay, research development falls into this intangible asset sector, and this is the particular definition that's given, right? However, an intangible asset to be recognized, there are 5 criteria, right? These need to be in place. Now, in our case, what's happening if you do research and development, it is in-house, right? So we need to look at, okay, what's going to happen? How are we going to manage this? How are we going to account for this, right? Any views? And have you guys done any research on IAS 38?
No.
Right, okay. So this is from extract from an article as well from SIMA. So after this, I don't think you really need to, if you want, you can go more in depth, but this captures the high level essence of this IAS 38, right? Now, let us go into the second part of it, which is especially when it looks at the research. Now, the research is definitely written off, right, directly into the profit and loss. But when it comes to the development side of it, it slightly changes, right? Development is defined as the use of knowledge gained, right? And then you look at, well, how can we capitalize it? Right? Expenditure on development is capitalized if and only if an entity meets all the above requirements, right? So these are the requirements. Then you need to meet all of them. Can demonstrate the technical and commercial feasibility of the asset, has the intention and the ability to complete and the intangible asset to either to use or to sell, can demonstrate how the asset will generate future economic benefit. So these 3 you need to meet in order for you to capitalize it, right? So if we kind of develop something, right, these 3 things need to be in place, right, if you're to capitalize it. Now, in this particular case, there's an example given where they pose the question, what part of it can we capitalize, right? In this case, you can see, can the 20 million be recognized, right? So, and then we're saying LM developed and patented a new drug which has been approved for use. The expenditure incurred developing the new drug was 10 million, right? So the 10 million, an independent value has estimated that the future sales from the drug means that the knowledge gained from the development work is worth 20 million, right? It's worth 20 million. So can we capitalize that? The question, it has been answered saying no, not the 20 million, but it's a 10 million that can be, right? And then it can be amortized over the useful life of the asset, the economic life. Okay, so again, there can be some questions around it. So this is the basic context around IAS 38, how we manage and plan this. Okay, now when it comes to research and development, there are some other things that plays a part. The stakeholders, corporate social responsibility, and create a differentiation, right? So CSR, I have got this Carroll's model here for CSR. First, a company will look at the economic responsibilities, when you're there. Then you look at the legal responsibilities. Then the third one will be ethical, and the fourth one will be philanthropic. So when a company starts off, the first thing would be, the most important thing for the company is, is it economically viable? Can we do business, and so on. The second is, then we also look at the legal responsibilities for society, etc., etc. Ethical and philanthropic is right at the top of the pyramid. Now, why am I saying with R&D, the other aspects, how can this be kind of expanded when it comes to stakeholders? R&D and stakeholders, how can these two come together?
It would benefit the shareholders if the R&D is useful for the company in the form of patents and reducing the cost of the wind turbines. So ultimately, it might increase the shareholder wealth. So R&D is connected in that way. Plus, R&D would give some sort of motivation for employees to try and find innovative solutions to the problems in the current world and how it can be managed sustainably. So that's the two aspects which affect stakeholders.
Right. Anybody else?
Yeah, if you want to have the sustenance in the business, you definitely need to have the research and development department, whatever the business it is. And especially ours is an alternative energy, so the research and development is inevitable. And the amount what they have spent is not enough when compared to the revenue that they had. They should have substantially spent more money. And having been in this business for the past 16 years, we couldn't see any article or any message in the case study that how the research and development have been measured and then how they have used it, because the common alternative energies which are all stated in the study materials are all that wind energy, solar energy, and then the sea power energy, and the biomass, etc., etc. So the next best alternative energy have still not been invented or suggested or brought up by the research and development department for the past 16 years, despite they spending some substantial money.
That's a good observation. And also from a stakeholder point of view, I'm just looking at it and saying, well, what about competing other projects, right? And certain stakeholders may prefer one over the other as well. So then there is some priorities and deprioritization taking place, because when it comes to R&D, the projects, you need to kind of consider the stakeholders as well, and to see how the stakeholders value each one of them. And then if you have a different view, you need to lobby to communicate, and the ones that you think are important, but also then you need to state and justify why the reasoning for those, right? So I can see some of the issues cropping up with R&D regards to that. Then also when it comes to funding, right? Funding, when you fund R&D, on the other hand, something else has to give, right? That is, maybe you're funding quite a lot in the future. Then what does it mean when it comes to dividends and giving the shareholders a return, right? Will you have to hold back the dividend, right? What would be the shareholders' view, the shareholders' goal? What is their return that they're expecting? Are they okay to hold on? Not take the investment, not take the returns, but for you to invest in some R&D, right? That's another angle that you need to look at as well. Another thing with R&D is corporate social responsibility. So this is not only it is linked because of the industry that we are in. It's certainly linked to the corporate social responsibility that this organization has. And again, when it comes to the reporting, the integrated reporting, we can very nicely include this as well. So I would say, even as from a CSR perspective, you can include it, but then again, you need to have your KPIs linked and agreed upon prior to investing in some research and development, right? So that everybody's very clear what the kind of KPIs are and what you have to achieve. So it's not shown as a bottomless pit, or you just have some R&D to carry out some activity, but there is no real KPI linked to it. What is the success rate? What are we going to do with it? Is it that's the important thing. Then we also mentioned create a differentiation. Now, I think when we look at this kind of industry, it's said very low barriers to entry, right? Especially we are in the consulting business, so to speak, and we are, so it's quite easy to get into this space, right? But how do we create that differentiation? Is through again, we can use R&D to create the differentiation. However, one of the other aspects that needs to be considered is, of course, the people, right? So we will come to that. Any other views before we go to the next slide? Okay. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, it's used for publicity as well.
Yes.
So R&D can be used to generate new clients from potential customers by telling us that we are the industry leaders in bringing out new innovations. And if you want the best product, you can come to us for advice. We'll be happy to give you the best at the at your budget.
Yeah. So that differentiation, plus you're adding to that your publicity and creating that brand, isn't it? So we're kind of nicely linking all those things together so that we get that awareness comes through, and people, if they want to do anything with alternate energy, they seek us out, right? So that's the kind of position that we want to be, because also remember one of our strategic goals and what is our mission statement. In the first instance, we talk about alternate energy to the world. That's the kind of mission statement that we've got. So it's a very grand mission statement we've got, and therefore I think one of you guys mentioned we've not invested sufficiently. Maybe we will invest, but then again, the dilemma is, should it be with operating as a separate entity? Should it work with this entity? So these are the things that we need to consider, and there will be dilemmas with this, right?
Yeah.
So I think we also spoke about, this is that KPI we spoke about, the issues related, the issues itself, because it's quite subjective, and we'll have to come up with the KPIs, the agreement of the KPIs, again, quite subjective. Certain stakeholders view it in a different way, because we need to link the commercial aspects of it as well. Right, so these are the dilemmas that we will face, and how do we advise the board, right? Is it possible that we collaborate with others in the industry, right? But Jai did mention quite correctly, that means that we're sharing, right? Our ideas, what we get from this, we're sharing these ideas with them. But then again, we can also look at, well, does it mean that that our risk is reduced, right? And also certain countries allow you to spend a lot of, and they give you grants as well, certain countries, right, for you to come in and do research and development. So that's something they might be also, they need to think about, right? Maybe not the whole company, you set up another company in another place, in another country, purely for R&D, because there's benefits in doing so, right? Another view. Okay, so you might come up with different multiple options in order to look at your R&D funding, R&D positioning of it, because we all know in this case R&D will play a significant role in the company. Any other questions or comments? Right, let us go to the next slide. Now, relocation, okay, this is an issue. So this I have brought this up as an issue. Why do you think it's an issue? Because we have been based in 100% in Brisbane, right? What about anywhere else, right? What are the issues pertaining to this? I want some comments. What do you guys think?
Yeah, the company is in existence for the 16 years, but they are operating very locally within this Brisland.
Mm-hmm.
We have not seen any data that they are all operating outside of Brisland. So in my opinion, there is ample scope for expansion. And they have not diversified their activities or put up their branches or divisions across the globe.
Okay, so by doing that, what are you exposed to? So it's one thing for us to say, yes, it is, we have the opportunity. If you look at their SWOT, it's there. We are in a very good place to go in overseas or go to somewhere else, right? But because their strengths are amazing, been in the business for a long time. But what are the issues that we may face?
So this is basically
all sorts of.
Yeah, go ahead, gentlemen. Yeah.
Yes, Jake.
Yeah, there'll be political risks, and I mean, we can do a pest analysis of the new country that we are planning to move into.
Mm-hmm.
It might be politically unstable, though it's geographically viable. So we need to know how, if we set up our business there, how stable is the political environment? Is the economic environment good for us? Are there a significant portion of wealthy landowners who are willing to set up wind farms in that particular country, or is that country already significantly developed in the form of alternative energy? So is there a potential market there, or are we already squeezed out of that market, even if we don't therefore have a chance to grab customers from other rivals? So these sorts of various risks are there. In addition, since we are in Brisbane, and if we plan to go to another place, there'll be foreign exchange risks involved, and we need to identify how valuable that currency would be in respect of Brisbane's B dollar, and whether all that currency, the profit that we generate, might get lower because of inflation or hyperinflation. And one more thing would be the technology. Can we transfer the technology from Brisbane to the new location or not? And can we get it within that country itself? So the complete pest analysis would be helpful here.
Thank you. Anyone else? I know someone else wanted to have a go at it.
Yeah, according to me, this is basically a consulting firm, so there is no much of detailed analysis in terms of getting on with the production side of it. So basically it's a consulting firm. Only marketing is required. So we may have to depute as many marketing managers in various potential locations, and again our existing engineering talent has to be relocated to those divisions. And in general, the consulting firms and the audit firms are all billing at the current existing current prevalent exchange rate. So there is no much question on exchange fluctuations. That's what I feel.
So, couple of things on what you mentioned.
I have one more comment.
Yes.
Ju?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. I looked at it slightly differently. I looked at the three divisions, and I see that the technology is easily, expandable across any frontier.
Yes.
It's basically technology. On the other hand, the two other divisions, which is legal and the PR and the public relations and government affairs, something like that, these are very country specific. So the law would change from one country to another, and you cannot have a lawyer, for example, practicing in Breezeland and go to another country and practice over there because he wouldn't know the law. So you'd have to basically hire a brand new team in that country and almost really start from scratch. So you cannot, there are some synergies to build upon, but very few. In technology, it's almost 100% exportable. The same thing would apply to government, and PR issues. Some of the general PR maybe can be exported, but that's maybe about 10 to 15%. The rest is pretty much from scratch. So I don't see the company being able to just move as is. Some divisions maybe could be, sent across, relocated easily. The others would pose a lot of problems, especially pertaining to, HR and, literally starting from scratch and not being able to build on the 10-year existence of the company.
Yeah, good answer. So I liked each one of your answers because it gave a different perspective, right? So I think Jake spoke about forex, right? But one of the other things, the other gentleman, the second gentleman, what you spoke was about. You mentioned, well, there would not be any forex, you can't see any forex coming through, exposure coming through. Well, it's difficult to say it's not, isn't it, if you're operating overseas, right? Because you need to, you're looking at income coming from there, right? And maybe the suppliers, the income, all those things you need to manage. The second thing what was mentioned is the people. Now the people, we are 100% in one country, one location currently. I mean, it's not easy for you to move them there, right? So in a theoretical sense, it's very well for us to say, yes, we've got X amount of people, let's move them from A to B, right? I know people who don't want to move states, never mind countries, right? So there will be a lot of change management that needs to be considered here as well, right? Quite a bit of change management. And so be careful. I think Roland, you did answer the last because you mentioned quite a number of things, and I like your answer where you mentioned, yes, technology you can, but PR and legal is something that is quite country specific. Maybe the processes you might be able to look at and uplift that kind of the processes from wherever we're doing it to this place, to this new location. But anything else, we may have to start from scratch, right? And that is correct, because if you look at in a practical sense, the legal the rules, etc., changes from country to country, right? You can't use the same thing. The second gentleman mentioned about marketing. Now, marketing, if you're saying marketing cannot be done by somebody who is in a different country, because imagine I'm in the UAE. I can't suddenly, even though if my company puts me in the UK, I can't immediately go in and start marketing because my connections in the UK is next to none, right? So the best possible way that I can start marketing would be through the basically your local connections. Maybe currently we have very strong relationships with our current universities, so maybe through the universities we have connection to the other universities in those other countries, and as well as we have to have country specific marketing people. So when you're talking about giving an answer, be very careful, right? Because we need to think about the practicalities of it. So in a theoretical sense, it may make good it may say, yeah, we could do it, but think of it practically, and the examiner will fail you for this, right? If you don't think of the whole process in a practical sense, because at the end of the day, it's people you're moving, right? You need to consider that. So immediately the examiner will look at it and say, well, you didn't have the business skills nor the people skills and the leadership skills, right? So you may fall flat because of that, right? Any views from you, Swati?
Currently, I can't think of anything.
Okay, right, let's go to the next one. Now we're looking at risks. Now this is there in your pre-scene. Okay, I have just reproduced it for us to discuss. Okay, competition. We have several lines of business. Each of it has competition. Why? Because in the product life cycle, we are in the growth phase. So when we are in the growth phase of the PLC, we're definitely going to face competition. And competition is going to be there for some time. And there are some reasons for the competition. There is government backing currently as well. It is all the companies and the society is talking about alternate energy. There's a lot of focus on this. So people are heavily going into, the companies are heavily going into this space, right? So they're also saying competitors are often capable of finding new and unforeseen ways to advance in the market. We must respond by developing our own strategies in order to maintain revenue. So what sort of strategies do you think we should develop? So
we have to focus on R&D and innovation.
Right. So one is R&D and innovation. What is another one?
Competitor tracking.
R&D, innovation, and you said competitor tracking?
Yeah, we can monitor what our rivals are doing, and try and either imitate it so that they don't have that as a core competence, and we can copy it as well. And if possible, to advance that factor even further with our own research, like reverse engineering in the form. So if they have done something good, we'll make it even better.
Right. Okay, that's a good idea. What else?
Yeah, we can brand ourselves. That will minimize the competition.
Sorry,
and,
say it again. What would we do?
We can brand ourselves.
Branding. Okay.
Yeah, that will help us in competition. And like Jay just now said, we can make like the things Samsung and Apple. No, if some of the competitor has come up with some of the research, we can counter it by supplementing that one.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anyone else?
Our strategic objective is to create shareholders' wealth and encourage the use of alternatives to fossil fuels, right? Such being this case, in the breeze land, we are basically a consulting firm. There will be only a very limited area of land, and then we are specialist only in the wind power. So once if the lands are all exhausted, then we can't even be maintaining our revenues. So there is an acute necessity of expanding our business beyond the breeze land. That is point number one. Point number two, there is an alternative to fossil fuels. So we have not done much. We have not invented much other than what we generally know and what have been discussed in the past 1 or 2 decades. So there are much more. We should be very much active in the research and development, and then in terms of even either cutting cost by finding out some other efficient lubricants, efficient operating methods, and then more particularly to get on to another alternate energy.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So what we emphasize first? Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, differentiation basically. You have to create differentiation in the positioning, in the product offering, in the pricing. We can also focus on a lot of customizations, and also very important, create some alliances. We can create some alliances in certain areas or certain products, whether universities, governments, even some of the competitors. That is also one way of approaching the market.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. So.
Well, I'm thinking we can form a part of a wind lobbying against the government. So suppose they are reducing our subsidies, and so other forms of alternative energy would be encouraged, like solar or whatever. So if we had formed a part of a lobby or an association, we can try and reduce that substitute competition as well.
Right. So I'm going to argue against that. We'll come to it. But R&D innovation. So now we want to be competitive, right? That's the topic. We want to be competitive. How am I going to create this R&D and innovation, right? So this means you need to, in order for you to be competitive, you need to be investing in innovation, in people, in products and things like that, right? So when we're looking at innovation, we're looking at, basically people have to create the innovation. So this means the innovative culture, right? So we need to have a conducive culture available where the people can create new things. They're not afraid to fail, right? It's available for them to kind of think outside the box, look at new ways of doing things. Now that kind of culture is quite important, and also a learning culture, right? So in this case, they're saying they are investing a lot on people. They're also encouraging them to learn. So these are positive things, and you can see they have the people are quite happy there, right? That's what they're saying. So this, even though from a competitor angle, in order for us to be competitive, then you need to look at our people, right, and the culture, and that plays an important role. We also mentioned about competitor tracking, reverse engineering. It is pretty good, where a famous case is where Nokia, when they had a huge market share and Apple came into the picture, the senior managers of Nokia were given, they were told apparently, look, Apple has come in with a phone and, give us, not much, $100,000-$200,000 to kind of dissect this and understand how they're doing this product. Look at what they're doing. And the simple answer to that was from the senior managers of Nokia, well, what market share does Apple have? Right? It didn't take them long to be the leader and Nokia to basically close shop. So you can see being arrogant doesn't take you far, and always you need to be quite cognizant of about your competitors, right? And this is something that Tim Cook, the Apple CEO, apparently is very conscious about, and he's always he's mentioned this. It's a mantra in his leadership team, where he mentions constantly, we could lose everything tomorrow, so keep innovating, think of doing things differently, right? There's always a burning platform. So even though in Breesland these guys are the leader, does not mean that they can hold on to that position for long, right? If they're quite complacent. So they need to look at, quite correctly mentioned, look at what the competitor is doing, maybe improve upon it, right? Another thing that was mentioned was branding. So branding does not come, it will come in hand with the innovation and what we do as well, our quality of the product. So in what we do, so branding will automatically be there because we have all these things going on. And again, we can build on a branding with R&D activities that we do as well. So expand beyond Breesland is another thing that we mentioned, saying it's quite right. There are factors here that will come to an end, like the land, right? And then also maybe the government want to encourage other alternate fuel the methods, and then stop looking at the wind farming, right, and focus on maybe solar, maybe something else, right? So then we are going to have a problem. So we need to look at beyond the product that we have currently, as well as look at beyond our current location, because what you see is competition, and then you see we must respond by developing our own strategies in order to maintain revenue. This is the key, maintain revenue. And we also mentioned differentiation. I like the fact, building alliances, that's very good. And also, work with the competition, work with your suppliers, work with certain people like your manufacturers, build those alliances so that we work as a team. And nowadays, you can see a lot of the companies work as, even with your competitor, you work quite closely in order to make your presence stronger, right? So in that way we can sustain and we can move on. Competition is going to be quite high because, as we said, it's a growth market. It's going to grow more. It's not going to get into a saturation phase anytime soon. It's going to be a growth market, so we need to have different ways to compete and sustain our position, right? Investment in new innovation. There is a risk there, right? How would we manage this risk? How would we manage this risk? Any ideas?
Yeah, I believe we have to make the R&D as a separate division.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very important to have a dedicated team only for the R&D. That will give focus for the other divisions. Yeah, that's it.
Anyone else? Yes, you can see this, I believe, with Google as well, because they separated the companies, right? Because you need to have, and there is a reasoning behind it as well, to see, you can, when you separate the companies, the focus becomes, it's different focuses, and also the KPIs are different. You're driven by different KPIs. And then you are able to focus on either current operations, as well as then you need innovation. So the innovation happens in a different part of a different entity of the whole of the group, right? what are the disadvantages of separating like that? We can see distinct advantages, but what are the disadvantages?
There are different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a conflict between current AEN's current divisions, the matrix structure, where they're willing to communicate across divisions, and then there is if there's a separate company for their division, then it could be conflicting because they might just be restricted. We innovate, we create new stuff, and what does the engineering division do? Nothing. There might be conflicts.
There might be a kind of not I think their viewpoints may be different, isn't it? They might think, well, I'm just carrying you, and you're not actually producing anything. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any other views? Thank you.
Yeah, there could be the case. There could be the case that staffs are participating and doing non-productive thing, and on the other hand, there will be the problem of change management.
Yes. Yeah. Another
Did
thing,
you hear? Okay, thank you.
yeah. Another thing that would be is that may be a problem is, you see, now the company is together, so the people who are in the operations as well will get an opportunity to work in these new things, right? That's happening, and a lot of professionals like this who are specialists and who are in this innovative space, they like to all the time work in some innovative stuff as well. So I think by separating the company and separating the employees, one into operation, one into kind of this innovation space, you may the ones who are in the operation may lose some interest, right, and motivation, and there would be definitely a change management when it comes to this separation as well. So that's something to keep in mind if there is a question like this into setting up two companies, one for innovation, one for the day-to-day activities. What are the advantages, disadvantages that may pose? Okay. Any other comments before you go to the next point?
Yeah, I think also the cost would be increased because we have to hire additional staff for the R&D. That's why also the cost would be increased.
Right. Okay. So what you are saying that we will hire additional staff because the current staff are doing R&D plus the operational work.
Yeah, that's right.
So what you can say, there might be a possibility. We're not sure. There might be a possibility. We don't know, right?
Yes.
New technologies. How will this impact us? There is a risk here.
Yeah, luckily, no one else have invented or it looks that there is no much of competition for AEN within this breeze land, and there is no evidences that there is no much noise in the media and or some research articles which is going to be so competitive with AEN. So according to me, that's a very huge risk. If someone have invented or someone have gone found out some other alternative energies or some other inventions which is going to prove that the cost of production of energy is going to be cheaper than what has been advised by AEN all along, then AEN would be losing the market slowly.
Okay.
So there is a potential risk. There is a potential danger.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyone else?
I want to ask about that investment in new innovation. If we create a separate company,
Yes.
how would we measure their KPIs? Because there would be a high risk that we are putting investments into a losing product or a losing research. We're like, let's try. Maybe it will come into a success because the only responsibility for the R&D or the innovation department is to create new products. So there is a chance that all the products that the innovation department or the company creates would be commercially not viable. So how do we control that?
And that's exactly what we were discussing before as well, Jay, because we need to have a focus on the commercial aspect of innovation as well, right? Because we can't just have a cost center and just sucking all the expenses and not producing anything, because that's counterproductive to what our strategic objectives are, right? So as a result, we need to have very clear KPIs to say, there are certain returns that we are expecting as form of patents or new products that's coming out of it. So we have to have some certain KPIs. It should be a KPI driven organization.
Okay, but how do you determine what is the time limit for such research? Like such research can be 4 to 5 years.
Yes, I think it depends on each research activity, what we want to do. So there has to be certain milestones as well. So we cannot be in a position to say, okay, whenever it happens, right? And it can take 10 years. But we need to have a very clear milestones as well as to what we are, how long, and the activities. Plus, we may selectively choose certain research projects, right? So we may decide, well, we're not going to be investing in research projects that go beyond 3 years, because we are a commercial organization. This particular activity is not conducive, right? And we may also think, well, certain activities which lends toward high risk, we will move away from that. So even selecting the R&D is needs to be thought of, and you need to select it in a very strategic sense to say, well, does it fit our objectives, as in the timelines, the risk, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so anything else on new technology?
Yeah, in new technology, I want to add, since inception, the turbine structure was not changed. If any new structure is innovated by somebody, and we were not, our technology was, our R&D was not prone to the new technology. Technology say turbine without blades.
Yes.
So in that case, it will be the risk for us. So just that I want to add you.
Okay. Anyone else?
So what's the source of mitigation for this new technology?
So the new technology, can we mitigate? Do you think we can?
Well, the only way is to either adapt it to our use, so that we don't, so that the competition doesn't outrun us.
Correct. We can't get out of this, right? We can't be sticking our head in the sand and saying, well, I'm not going to go into this new technology because, well, I've just invested in something. Because the competitor, like you quite rightly said, will take that on and move ahead, right? So let us see how we can do it, how we can work with it, right? Now, when it comes to new technology, then you need to ask yourself, if the technology is changing rapidly, right, in 3 years' time, in 4 years' time, and you've invested quite a bit, do you need to look at the investment in a different sense? Do you need to look at, okay, do I need to invest in it and buy this thing? Is it possible to hire? Is it possible to have the funding of it in a different sense? Do I need to own this? Right? Can I just pay for what I use for the 3 years and then go to something else? Right? Because we can't help it. Our technology changes, and that is a fact. The technology will change, but how we adapt to it, how we think of getting in the whole process, that we can change. Right?
Yeah, correct. Our response will be
Yes.
critical for it.
Correct. It's just merely our response. How we gonna play with it? How we gonna respond to this thing is the key, right? Because it's same like it's the environment. The environment changes. You can't stop it. But it's the way we respond to it that can change the existence of the organization. Any other questions or comments?
Can I tell that either we should adopt the full technology or we should keep one substitute technology, means alternate technology?
So the thing is, that's Maha, right? Am I right? Yeah. The thing is, you need to look at it not from a transactional perspective, right? You need to look at it in a strategic perspective, because why am I saying this? This is not something that I will do and act within the next 1-2 years. The choice that you make today will change the course of direction of the company, right? So when you're advising to the board, remember the choice you make will change the course of the company. Right? So always think of it in the long term, not in a short term perspective. Right? Let's go to the next one. Now, government funding and the risk associated with it. How can we mitigate this? What are the by having government funding, it helps the client, right? Because a client is given funding which will enable them to work in this space quite a lot, and also gives us business. Now suddenly there might be a position where we say, well, there's not going to be funding. How will you manage that?
Firstly, by lobbying, and other by a new lower technology cost.
Okay.
Here we can see in our case particular, and we can see that even though the funding was subsidy was reduced down, our profit was not reduced. So we can understand that our technology was cutting edge technology.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
We can see for other source of funding, like the environmental bodies or any other organizations that can fund our R&D.
Right, okay. Because they're talking about facilities have decreased. The energy facilities, alternative energy facilities has decreased, right? So one other thing is, are we looking at funding for research and development, or funding of the operational activities? That we need to understand, okay? Because those things will make a difference. Now, if it is funding of research and development, what is the alternative that you have?
We can get money from private equity firms or any investors that are looking for long-term return.
Okay, so you're going into another funding source.
Yeah, financial institutions or private equity firms.
Why do you think they would be interested in funding you?
Because I think that industry is booming and it has it's very potential, and yeah, and it would give them a good high return in the long term.
Right. So you can link it to their CSR as well. And also you can look at it, because I mean you're looking at R&D, and there might be success, there might be failure, not sure. Right. So there is a possibility where they will invest. And if you see companies like, for example, I'm not taking Shell in here, but I'm just bringing the example of Shell because they sponsor a lot of activities like this. So if you think of insurance companies, certain other companies where they'll come in to help facilitate or fund things like this. Okay. Another option. Any other option? Another option would be where they could go to a country, this only the R&D, they can set it up in another country which supports a lot of R&D and provides a lot of grants and facilitation in that form. Ireland, for example, is renowned for supporting companies, right? And because of its low tax, a lot of the other companies from the US started coming in. Okay, so you can look at moving this particular area to a different country and operating there. Now, when it comes to
they could also, another way of doing it, as I mentioned earlier, partnering could be a very interesting option. Like if instead of me investing all the R&D
Correct.
and use it only in Breezeland, I can, for example, talk to another company like Breezeland in country UK, let's say, or in France, and partner with those three companies, pool the resources to do an R&D, and then each one would use that technology in his individual country. So you basically leverage your R&D by partnering with other private companies, or it could be government entities, whatever.
Yeah.
But this is also very big potential and big possibility as R&D budgets are becoming restricted worldwide. This is a very viable option, I think.
Yes, because you bring together the synergies. I mean, you got experts in different areas. So you're right, bringing together these people and forming that alliance, which will just propel all the companies rather than just one, because of one has to basically bear the cost and the risk associated as well. Right.
Yes, I mean you see this very common, like for example Airbus.
Yes.
Airbus does its R&D, through different countries. Many of the large companies, pharmaceuticals and so on. So this is common, although this is a smaller company. But it could be potential for them to find niche consultants like them in other countries and pull in the R&D so they can reduce their individual cost. Instead of paying 100%, they can start sharing 30% of their R&D and improve their P&L.
Correct. Because we are looking at the government funding going away. Now, if there is government funding going away from the technology itself, right now we looked at R&D technology, what would you do? What options do you have?
Diversify into other energies so that we don't lose out our market share.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? Well, imagine what we're saying is previously I was given incentive, right, by the government to buy these the wind farms, the turbines itself, but now no. What's the alternative? The price is, let's say, 100,000 one of those turbines. What's the alternative? look at reducing the cost, right, of those turbines. How can you reduce the cost? You can partner with people, manufacturers overseas, and see, because you have the expertise, right, you can see whether you will be able to manufacture them, or again create a joint venture with the manufacturer to create them at a very low price, same quality, and then bring into Breezeland, right? This is another way of looking at things. Now let us look at protesters. We'll have ethical issues here that we need to deal with, because again we'll go through this in a question. Legal liability, a lot of issues can come through because of our consultancy, because we are not the ones who manufacture, but we are the ones who advise the client. But if there is a fault in the manufacturer's equipment, it will come to us as well, right? This is a thing to be concerned, and you have to take care of that. Quality of the service. So in this case, you're looking at very much the trained staff, and having a very good quality staff. They also mentioned third parties may attempt to disrupt and damage projects, malicious damage. These are all things that can come through. How can we avoid? Then you look at security, right? Especially this day and age, you need to invest quite heavily in security. What are the possibilities? What can go wrong with these wind turbines, right? The ones that's erected, what can go wrong, is something that you need to first understand, and then look at give proposals as to how to manage it, right? Key personnel, that's also a risk, because what if they leave, right? What is the alternative? Succession planning is not there, so that's a bit of a risk as well, right? So the risk and AEN, what do we have to do? How are we going to, whatever the risk may be, what we discussed is how to control and manage, right? That's the important. And you need to provide that response at a strategic level, not at an operational level. And you need to think of the risk mitigation strategies for each one of them, right? Any questions so far?
I wanted to ask about the operations funding. If it gets reduced, we can't immediately, partner with a supplier and get low-cost products. It will take years of research just to come back to normal prices. Without the subsidy coming to reduced prices. You can't. So it's not a short-term recommendation that just because the government cut in funding, we suddenly start with a supplier and try to reduce costs. It might be not viable. It might not be viable.
Correct. And this type, like I said again, this is not something that can happen overnight, right? So the government reduction changes also will happen. They will give time. Because it will take quite some time for people to adjust as well, and the businesses to actually manage. So therefore it does take a little bit of time. That's the time, this is the time you need to actually keep on thinking and looking at other options. You should not be waiting till the government takes off the incentives. You should start thinking about other options now, right? That is what they expect you to come up with, and say, right, there might not be an issue right now for you, but we don't know what's going to happen in 4 years time or 3 years time, hence what is the kind of alternatives available, and you start that dialogue.
Okay.
Then we'll always come across new opportunities, right? This is again in your paper, that will be there. New opportunities in the form of products, in the form of ventures, new ventures, in the form of new markets, right? You need to look at what are the available resources. Does it fit from the strategic point of view? Okay. What are the sources of funding available for each one of these, right? And some of the risks are, well, overseas expansion, what is there, new product, joint venture, acquisitions. All of these are going in, they fall into this new opportunities pot. However, all of them have got quite a number of risks associated. It's a case of how we manage these risks, right? How we manage and mitigate. Any ideas or any thoughts here? When I say strategic fit, how does it relate to this new opportunity?
Will it maintain the reputation of the company if we go into that particular venture? So, is it in line with our strategy of encouraging alternative energy? So, any opportunity can be mapped against mission and strategy.
And also we need to consider who our partner is, right? Does the partner fit in with our strategy, right? That's important, because the partner, whoever it is, maybe the culture, the values, and etc., may not be in they will not fit us. So then it will not, this activity, this initiative will not go forward. Okay. And
correct.
So skill availability, how does that impact? What does that mean?
Well, like I think Roland said before, we would require new legal and PR if we move to a different location or we diversify into a different product. So, do we have the necessary skilled workers?
Okay.
So that, yeah.
And so our guys who are present may really not be interested even, right? They may not be interested even moving. Okay, so that's a dilemma, because you think, well, I can lift and shift, we have people here, we can use them. No, people might not be interested. Okay, another thing is sources of funding. What are the different sources available? Okay, and these are how we will evaluate as well some of our choices, right? And then come to a conclusion. And when we are writing the conclusion, we've already spoken about this kind of the brief, we've spoken about theories, and then we come to recommendations. Yeah. And I'll mention specific risk. What does that mean? Swati, what does the specific risk mean? Any idea there? Specific risk.
Supposing that if you get into manufacturing, you're manufacturing of now turbines, which we have not been into previously. So in terms of availability of manpower, in terms of technology, so we'll be finding it extremely difficult to get on with that new side of this business.
Right. Anyone else? So the company risk is different. Now, if you're calculating the weighted average cost of capital, I'm going into F3 now a little bit. Company risk is something that you will be calculating, but but when it comes to this particular project, you may have a specific risk that you need to consider, right? So that needs to be considered. Like for example, if you're going into an expansion with the same product, it's not a big risk because you know your product, right? But if you're investing in a new product in a new market, suddenly your risk profile is going to be quite high because you don't know anything about this product to start off, and also on top of it you're going into a new market, right? This is what I say, a specific risk in a project. HR I have mentioned because our people are extremely important. Consulting company, so what happens? Loss of a player, key player in our team. Succession planning has not been mentioned as well. They talk a lot about the key people, but they don't say how they're going to train the rest of the people. We mentioned about risks related to innovation strategy. What is the HR roadmap in order to support our company, right? And the strategy. That's important as well. Issues linked with combining with others, that means other companies, right? There'll be plenty of issues involved if you're trying to transition the company, okay? In anything we will have funding, right? Any kind of exam. So in this case we are looking at, well, what are the available resources, what is the implication of it. Let's say we are going to get more debt. What does it mean? Do we have sufficient capacity to get more debt, right? How does it impact our shareholders? How does it impact our balance sheet? Because we need to pay X amount of money each month as interest, so, and the capital. So how will that work? Yeah. And of course the cost of capital and risk involved. We mentioned about the protesters. You need to talk about the social media as well, how to use it very effectively. I just want to go through this quickly so that we can get into a question. We spoke about CSR and integrated reporting. This will certainly link with your brand and reputation. Okay. Ethics, I think we're coming into the last part of it. Be very careful how you deal with the protesters because it's important. You need to deal with it very in an ethical manner. Even new products are also the same thing. Okay. Now let me stop sharing the screen and I'm going to go into some questions. So what I would like you guys to do is create an answer plan. As we said, I'll give you 10 minutes to create this answer plan and we will share it. This is actually adapted from the past paper. Okay, so one second. Yeah. I'm going to share my screen with you. And I'll give you 10 minutes to go through this. Hi, so the time is up. Have you guys answered? How did it go?
Can we get more 2 minutes?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, will do.
Yeah, can I share my screen? Don't know exactly it is good or not. Hello? Hello? Hello, Anju, can I share my screen?
Sorry, did somebody say something?
Yeah, can I share my screen? I don't know whether I'm in the right foot or not.
Okay. Let me see. No, we can't see it as yet. Yes, now we can. So first of all, was it an easy question, difficult question?
No, a bit twisting, mind twisting.
It is, isn't it? It's not suddenly you say, what did I study? And now where did this question come from?
Yes. I think it is the nutshell of whatever we have studied so far.
Mm-hmm.
Shall I read it?
Yes, we can. And you have given advantage. We're saying should create. So first thing, how many questions have they asked in this? Let's go into that.
Yeah, 3 questions were there.
Right.
First is should AN create formal coaching scheme?
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, yes. I said yes, we should create a formal coaching scheme, and following are the advantages.
Mm-hmm.
It will keep the knowledge of the member updated and motivated to bring the new ideas and innovative ideas, to help to retain the existing workers so that they can find value addition. It will help in the succession plan as well.
Right, okay.
Disadvantages will be the lack of interest among the members, misappropriation of the fund, in the sense that it will not be useful by the company, it may not be, and loss of productive hours.
Mm-hmm.
We can organize a formal mentoring scheme by inviting industry and academic specialists in the relevant field. Nothing comes further. and difficulties associated with R&D, that it could be misguiding, it could not be relevant for the business, it could be not in the line with the present business, the line the business is going on. It should not be the competitive. It will not give the competitive advantage.
Right.
That's
Okay.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So thanks for trying. It's not the most easiest kind of question, and you can see how difficult the answering becomes, because suddenly you're supposed to answer this question and you're kind of looking at, now have not studied this in my class, what are we going to do, right? So the first thing I would suggest is to say how many questions, right? So the first thing is, should AEN create a formal coaching mentoring scheme? So that is kind of and the end of it, you need to provide that recommendation. What is the advantage and disadvantages? Okay. So the next one, how should we organize a formal mentoring scheme? Third one is, what are the difficulties, right? So all of you should have had 3 questions very clearly marked. Now then you have to align, you have to have your competencies as well. Remember your competencies. Okay, can I ask Swati, have you finished, have you done your answer?
Yeah, I did. I did not get a lot of ideas for this, but I
Yes.
did write down a few points, but I did not do it on the laptop.
Okay then, let's see.
I wrote it down.
Yeah, what did you say?
I think majorly I wrote what Prabin showed. So it was more or less that it was like, yeah, we should actually go for the formal mentor scheme, because it's going to bring in a positive culture in the people, where they would want to go for learning new techniques, and probably that is going to help us, also create a brand for our company. And the enthusiasm and the positivity that comes along with mentoring, it is going to increase our productivity also. And one of the methods of doing the mentoring scheme is definitely by inviting the industrial tutors, or we can do that using 2 methods. One is either you physically invite them and then they can give live lectures, or you can also do that using technology such as conferences, online conferences, video conferences, and things like that. So that does not cost a lot to us, and also it solves the purpose. I think these are the few points that I jotted down.
Anyone else
could not get anything.
Yeah, anyone else who's come up with an answer plan, different ideas, or is it the same lines?
Yeah, I have some.
Yes, go on.
I'll share my screen.
Sure.
So the same thing like these 2.
Right.
That,
so you're saying
that
we should
have
go
a coaching.
ahead.
Yes. So yeah, so the advantages, like the employees, they'll feel very good that they're giving back to society or to the organization or to future engineers, in the form of mentoring them for this research and giving them their side of experience. So the employees benefit as well. So I think I'd mentioned in my previous in one of the sessions that this Maslow's hierarchy we can use here.
Correct.
Then there is increased communication between the employees and the university. So there is clear goals set for them that they don't just waste their time on some projects which are not feasible for the company, and they get to know it well in advance. Like if the university is thinking we are going for this project, within the first week itself, if the mentor is there, he'll be like, no, this is not feasible for the organization. We'll have to do something else.
Right.
So there is less time wasted. Then there is exposure for students and faculty both, because they get experienced professionals telling them because works in the industry, what doesn't work. So they get that practical ideas in their head, and there is mutual sharing and transfer of knowledge. So I think Praveen had mentioned that both their ideas get updated and they learn new techniques. But I forgot to record disadvantages. This
You
second
forgot,
part,
or you
organizing a
spent too
mentoring
much
scheme.
time?
I was time pressured into giving all three answers, so I forgot the disadvantages. I just
Right.
wrote the advantage. Okay, then what is the next part? I forgot on writing the disadvantages. So when Praveen was mentioning, I just put in the title of disadvantage. I didn't write it earlier.
So that again gives you the opportunity to realize that you should have the topics. This is what the examiner is asking. Put it down so you know you've not missed it. Right, when you're doing the answer plan.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's the advantage of having the answer plan, because you forget. I mean, guys, you forget. You have such little time. You have so many thoughts coming in. You just forget, right? And you will lose valuable marks. Anyone else? Roland, thank you. What about you, Roland?
So there are the.
Sorry, go on. What else that you've got? You
These
didn't
two
write
other
the
parts are there.
disadvantages. Yeah.
But the other two parts are there. So for organizing a mentoring scheme, we could have
Yes.
fortnightly brainstorming meetings between the between the mentor and university, so that there's discussions of ideas and we monitor the progress, like a proper project steering committee. Only in this case, the mentor is the steering committee.
Right. Okay.
Right. Then there is informal networking to create team building between the faculty and the mentor. So there is more open communication between them. And then as a proper mentor acts as a sounding board, the engineer or whoever, he'll act as a sounding board. So and he gives relevant advice.
Okay.
Then the final part is the difficulties associated with R&D. Well, there'll be two aspects. One is there'll be a lot of good ideas from the students, but then it's not practically feasible, or we don't have the technology to develop it further at a lower cost. So even though it's good for AEN, it might waste a lot of our investment with very low profit or margins for it. So it's kind of a dilemma for us.
Right. Good.
And yeah, so again, same thing, constant monitoring to avoid waste of time, and we'll have constant feedback that this can't be a good project because it doesn't have the high margins.
Yes.
Even though it's good for the company and it might be in line with the mission, but it might not increase shareholder wealth.
Right, but you can
one,
also look at it from a CSR perspective.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't increase the shareholder wealth. That's one idea. That it might be sustainable for the company, it might be good for CSR, but it doesn't meet the first strategic objective.
Right.
And the second one is it might be good to develop, but the time taken is so long that by the time we develop the profits, we would lose too much investment. So again, same thing. Time has to be monitored through the steering committee or the mentor.
Right. Okay.
So that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Roland, anything from you, or is it similar?
I have something a little bit different actually.
Okay.
On some of the issues. So let me try to share my screen just a second. Whoops. Okay. So I guess I'm not sure whether it's clear for everyone.
No, can say it. Oops.
You cannot see it?
No, go on now. No, we can see your screen right now.
Oh, you can see my
Yeah,
screen.
can see.
Okay. Okay. So please disregard the items in red because these are, comments that I just put,
Yeah.
from my other colleagues. So I saw they've answered and I've added them because it's always useful to learn from the others.
Correct.
So yeah, and the advantages side, I said that it, the having coaching provides guidance to research. It anticipates the expected outcome and results of the research, and it helps establishing KPIs for the R&D.
Mm-hmm.
On the disadvantages, I thought that it limits creativity and might hinder innovation because you're basically, driving the scheme, driving, where things are going in a way. And then there's a risk of overlooking disruptive technology. So somehow, I don't know why I thought this, but, I took the example of Nokia and Apple in this sense is like, when you put guidance and, people driving it, sometimes they just start pushing projects very early on and it risks, that you oversee something very important, disruptive into the game. Anyways, in terms of organizing the formal mentoring, thought of form alliances with reputed professors and specific areas of interest in research and approach companies to identify senior managers who could act as mentors and approach government entities to adopt mentoring services to encourage the growth of the industry overall. In terms of difficulties, one of the things is the ambiguity of innovation and potential of straying in the wrong direction. And of course, results might not be obtained. And then one thing I thought of, which could be very frustrating to the employee, which I'm putting here.
Yes.
In case they are unable to deliver, normally they feel like they have been kind of isolated later on, and their future budgets then tend to be cancelled or reduced because they have not succeeded in the past. So it creates a lot of moral pressure on the employees.
Right. It's a difficult question, isn't it? I mean, it's not a very easy, straightforward question, but such is life, and that's the kind of questions that we get, right? And we should be able to answer. So, Maha, you have got you've got the advantages. Disadvantages, yeah, we can see that. Yeah, I like the way you've structured it because you're saying very clearly there's no way to miss anything. So you set up that kind of structure, which is good. Anything you want to state, Maha? Can you go to the disadvantages, please? I want to have a look at that one. Waste of time will not yield desired results, right? Yeah. So to tell you how the examiner marked this one is something similar appeared in May 2015, variant 2, question 3, and it touches on business relationship. The business skill is business relationship. People skill is mentoring. Leadership skills here is organized mentoring and the decision making, right? So there is no technical skill in this case, but the 3 other skills they're focusing is business, people, and leadership skills. So I think some of you in some form or the other have included in the disadvantage is, well, this company is not in the mentoring. I mean, to set something up like this, they may not be geared up for it, and the members of the organization might get may not be focused on the current activities and getting distracted because of this mentoring activity that's happening, right? I think quite a few, some of you have identified that as an issue which needs to come through, right? Because always ask the question, if they post something, should we do this, should we do that, whether it's mentoring, whether it's doing something other activity, look at it in a more strategic sense and say, well, what business are we in and how does it link to our business? Can we generate a profit out of this, and how does it get linked, right? That's important to figure out, because if it's not, because it's a strategic imperative here, right? If we say yes, go for it, that means the business is going to set this up and then launch on that course of action, right? Which may not be the best thing. Should we, if we think it is important, should we create a separate sector to do it? Should we work with